This video tutorial is all about gas exchange in other organisms. Specifically, it looks at the mechanisms of ventilation and gas exchange in bony fish and in insects. So bony fish must exchange gases with the water in which they live. They use gills in order to absorb oxygen, which is dissolved in the water, and release carbon dioxide back into the water. The oxygen concentration in water is lower than that in air. Most bony fish typically have 5 pairs of gills, which are covered by a bony plate called the operculum. And you can see the operculum labelled on the bony fish there in the top left corner. Each gill consists of 2 rows of gill filaments, which the fancy name for that is primary lamella, which are attached to a bony arch. The filaments are really, really thin, and their surface area is folded into loads of secondary lamella, which are sometimes called gill plates. Now, this ultimately provides a really large surface area for gas exchange. Blood capillaries carry deoxygenated blood close to the surface of the secondary lamella, where then exchange can take place. Now, if we were at school, we would carry out a bony fish dissection at this point. This is obviously something you can do at home. So if you have a fishmonger nearby or your local supermarket sells whole intact fish, perhaps you might do this during lockdown at home. Now, blood flows along the gill arch and out along the filaments to the secondary lamella. The blood then flows through capillaries in the opposite direction to the flow of water over the lamella. This arrangement creates what's known as a counter-current flow that enables the maximum amount of oxygen to be absorbed from the water into the blood. Bony fish can keep water flowing over the gills by using a buccal opercular pump. The buccal cavity, which you might refer to as a mouth, can change volume. So the floor of the mouth moves downwards, which draws more water into the buccal cavity. And then the mouth closes, and so when the floor is then raised, it's going to push the water through the gills. Movements of the operculum are coordinated with the movements of the buccal cavity. So as water is pushed from the buccal cavity, the operculum moves outwards. This movement reduces the pressure in the opercular cavity, helping water to flow through the gills. Insects do not transport oxygen in blood. Insects have an open circulatory system, and you can see that in the left-hand diagram on the slide in front of you. So within the open circulatory system, the body fluid acts as both blood and tissue fluid. Circulation is slow and can also be affected by movements in the body. Insects possess an air-filled tracheal system. Now, this tracheal system supplies air directly to all of the respiring tissues. Air enters the system via a pore in each segment called a spiracle, and you can see some spiracles labelled there on the slide in front of you. The air is transported into the body through a series of tubes called trachea. The trachea divides into smaller tubes called tracheoles, and the ends of the tracheoles are open and fill with a fluid called tracheal fluid. Gas exchange occurs between the air in the tracheoles and the tracheal fluid. Some exchange can also occur across the thin walls of the tracheoles. Many insects are really, really active, and as a result need a really good supply of oxygen. When the tissues are active, the tracheal fluid can be withdrawn, and you can see that on the right-hand side of the slide in front of you. So the tracheal fluid can be withdrawn into the body fluid in order to increase the surface area of the tracheal wall, which is exposed to air. This means that more oxygen can be absorbed when the insect is active. Larger insects can also ventilate their tracheal system by movements of the body. Now, this can be achieved in a number of ways. In many insects, sections of the tracheal system are expanded and have flexible walls. These act as air sacs, which can be squeezed by the action of the flight muscles. Repetitive expansion and contraction of these sacs ventilate the tracheal system. In some insects, movement of the wings alter the volume of the thorax. So as the thorax volume decreases, air in the tracheal system is put under pressure and is pushed out of the tracheal system. When the thorax increases in volume, the pressure inside drops and air is pushed into the tracheal system from outside. Some insects have developed this ventilation even further. So locusts can alter the volume of their abdomen by specialized breathing movements. These are coordinated by opening and closing valves in the spiracle. And again, you can see a spiracular valve on the slide there. As the abdomen expands, spiracles at the front end of the body open and air enters the tracheal system. As the abdomen reduces in volume, the spiracles at the rear end of the body open and air can leave the tracheal system.